Sanjay, we're here in New York City at a workshop that you're running along with Amdocs, and wanted to get your take. Hadoop has been getting a lot of broad acceptance in the telecommunications market. Can you give us some insight into Hortonworks and the work that you're doing with a lot of the communication service providers and the level of activity there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, it's an area that I think has a lot of interest from service providers. If you kind of think about the areas that have really kind of exploded over the last few years, it's been around, kind of the explosion in mobile, in cloud, and in big data. And it's interesting that when you talk about big data, the feeds into them are the explosion from the mobile side and social media. It's from the cloud and the IoT components that come from different sources. It's sitting at the heart of something that we're seeing go across a number of industries, but near and dear to the telecom sector, which is really, how do I take information, massive amounts of information, both internal and external, and start using it in a meaningful, powerful manner. It's one that, from a carrier space, there's always been an interest in understanding and managing the experience of customers, and it's always been challenged because of the silo aspects that came across the systems. And in the past, in many cases, there were approaches to say, how do we integrate these systems together in some form or fashion? And what Hadoop and this technology has done is kind of shifted that around. That says, well, instead of working around the applications, let's work around the data. And it's part of that transformation that says, let's become data-centric and minimize the movement of data and let the applications come there. And so what it's really translated to is, if you want that understanding of the customer's experience, you can actually bring in the things that are touching the customer. Their experience that they're receiving off the network, telling you the quality of service and the aspects that have affected them in the service, things around billing, the call records, the usage patterns, tap into social media and understand what their sentiment is and aspects around there, tap into voice to text and understand the dialogues they're having with the call centers, and really encompass a holistic aspect of it. So that's really become, I think, the early and probably the most mature area within the carrier space that's taken off. Is now I take this together, I can not just see the view of the customer, I can see the household. I can differentiate which groups are doing what, and I could apply it on a real-time basis to next best action. How do I react or proactively act to things that are affecting my customer, and take action before they negatively impact the customer, or be able to understand and take action, be it from the call center, the retail stores, or the different omni-channels, and react to the customer. We're seeing that on the real-time promotion side and other avenues like that. But we're also seeing kind of a new growth that's happening that, on the network side, that says, well, this has always been a massive amount of information that we never could tap into. I mean, we would tap into call records, but not all the other detail. And we're now kind of using this technology in a way that both optimizes the activities on the network, but also assembles it with customer information to actually have a much more meaningful set of aspects that both support what the customer needs, but also allows the actions to take place on the network to respond as needed. And I think it's become more and more interesting from a carrier perspective as they start shifting to software-defined virtual networks, the NFV functionalities that are shifting from the hard-coded big machine-driven or device-driven solutions to more of a cloud-type solution.
NFV, SDN, and how that transition will occur in a hybrid.
Yes, and so that area has been, certainly a lot of work has happened over there. As carriers are getting ready to determine how they're deploying NFV, what's really popping up is, for it to be meaningful and really get the business value, you need to collect the data at the various sources and apply the real-time kind of context-aware events to drive when you need to provision. And so we're seeing an explosion of information and data being driven on that front as well. And I think kind of the final area is, this really represents kind of the new generation of solutions, digital solutions that carriers are bringing out to market, whether it's things like analytics as a service or other pieces like that. Certainly on the M2M and IoT, that's been an explosion area of how to take information from sensors, from various sources, in many ways kind of correlate it with whether it be demographics and other and use it for actionable activities.
Yeah.
So we're seeing that as another really powerful area that's kind of exploding.
Okay. And I see Hortonworks as more of a technology supplier. So at this particular venue, you're working with Amdocs, but you're also working with other firms as well. How do the service providers view your company? I think right now you're about 700 or so employees. How do they see Hortonworks? Do they see you as coming in with a partner like Amdocs and providing the solution, or are they coming to you directly as a technology supplier?
So it's a bit of both, and it goes a little bit beyond the technology. So part of the reason that it's that model is because this is a brave new world. There's not too many pre-built models from the past that you could just apply here. So in a sense, they need to understand how you re-architect things, how you apply solutions in this manner. And for example, most of the North American Tier 1 carriers are customers of ours, and they ask us
where you've sold directly.
Yes,
into,
where we sold directly.
Okay.
And not that we don't have partners that we work very closely with. In some cases, parts of the solutions were coming in from partners. In other cases, they want us to work directly. In most areas, as they shifted from kind of the one or two use cases into a more broader set of activities, they really wanted us involved to help on that maturity model.
Okay.
But we are, we're seeing in various areas where they really do want to leverage the activities in partners. So, for example, the activities we're doing with Amdocs, because there's, a lot of that information will be coming from the Amdocs systems. Their people have a knowledge of the data and how to use it.
Domain expertise.
Domain expertise.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense to partner in that type of model. We're seeing similar things with other partners.
Yeah.
But
do you have any high-profile service providers that are in the public domain that you can talk about, or even if you can't, share with us some of the more innovative solutions that communication service providers are employing to take advantage of your technology?
Yeah, so there are a few service providers that have publicly discussed aspects. So groups like Rogers Communications, they've been using this technology to more target more readily their customer and audience, and driving it to more of a dynamic profile base, and with some huge business success.
Okay.
Explosions in their advertising revenue and other pieces as they apply it there. Other service providers like Newstar have talked about the huge benefits from a cost perspective. But the majority of the carriers that are customers of ours, they find it a very sensitive area because it's so mission critical to what they're doing that publicly they don't want to say too much.
Well, you have the whole issue with security and privacy, and
it is. But it's kind of an interesting mix because this is a technology that at one level they do want to share with each other, because that's the whole value of open source, is that you don't want to reinvent the wheel at this component. You want to really take advantage, and as a matter of fact, a lot of the carriers have helped mature some of that technology to be applied across all industries, and they've used it in very big ways to bring information into full data lakes and actually use it holistically across their organization, across the customer touch points, the network side, and then the new product offerings. A lot of maturity at that stage, but it's at the same time that's also the characteristics that they put above this level that make it their flavor, and their differentiator is one that they also want to be very sensitive about.
Yeah. Okay. Final question for you. I think we talked about this earlier today. Do you see the market shifting away from what I'll call point products, very much around application-based solutions, all the way from ingestion of the data to the processing, analytics, and then finally the reporting of that data, to more of a DevOps environment where there's a little more flexibility? Or do you think we'll still remain in this mode of we have domain experts like Amdocs in the marketplace, and these point products will just proliferate into the market?
So I think we're seeing a hybrid between the two, where in some cases, depending on the angle, you see it as a point solution, and from another angle, you actually see it as a DevOps or a bigger play. And part of the reason that's happening is this is part of a big transformation that shifted from an application-centric model, where data is flowing through the applications and mapped across applications, to a data-centric model, where you're really trying to minimize the movement of data and you bring the applications to it. So when you look at that model and you kind of understand the concept of a data lake, of bringing that in, you can, as you kind of put a lens against there of how you're ingesting and how you're identifying and taking action against it, it gives you the point solution that you're talking about. But at the same time, it's playing into a model that you could introduce 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 point solutions within that same infrastructure model. So you're seeing the both take place. That from a business perspective, the point solution approach, although it's not an application, it's applied to a solution to say, this is the business case of why it's there, and you need to see true ROI to determine the value of there, and you see it very easily because of the low cost for development and rapid deployment. But it's a bigger play that says, as you do this DevOps model, it's really building a center of excellence that you can start applying more and more solutions, and all shifting into this data-centric approach, where data is really the heart of the business of carriers, and across all enterprises, but certainly the carrier space in particular.
Okay. Thanks for your time, Sanjay.
No, thank you.